iron in the soul. What's up, YouTube? This is your brother Iron and Soul. Back today with another very important message. Please subscribe to my channel. Like this video, leave a comment, share this video. Let me know what you think about my content. Well, men, I've received a number of requests with regards to this topic of prayer and fasting. And so I am excited today to go into this today and give you some insight from this book I read probably 2 or 3 years ago. I kind of lose track now. Now it's a little longer there, maybe about 4 years, actually. I think I read this book about 4 years ago. And the book is entitled The Atomic Power with God Through Prayer and Fasting. Through fasting and prayer. The New Atomic Power with God Through Fasting and Prayer, Franklin Hall. Very powerful book, and one that has, encouraged me in my discipline of fasting. Fasting has been a part of my life on some level, and I've done various fasts from 24 hours to 3 days to 7 days. I think the longest is up to about 14 days. And I fasted from meats for a couple of years. Back in my 20s, 2 years I didn't eat meat. And so I'm done various fasts, from partial fast to a 3-day absolute where I had no water, no food, no nothing. And I will say, of course, be careful with that. Of course, with your health and medical conditions and whatnot, don't hurt yourself. And first, probably immediate question is, okay, good for you. How did that benefit you? Well, I can say this. I can say without a doubt that I have never went on a fast and felt the next day that I wasted my time. There was always some level of relief, whether it's just on a spiritual level of receiving a release of peace and joy and spiritual power. On a physical level, okay, we're talking health, feeling better, clearer skin, fasting. You guys know this, you're smart guys, releases toxins from the bodies. It helps to prevent early signs of diabetes, and a number of other health benefits that can help you to have a healthier life. Right? I read an article 2 years ago about people who fast once a week, 24-hour water fast, and it's been useful in really rejuvenating the body, and literally can be like a fountain of youth, something that can be useful in terms of keeping you young, keeping you healthy. And so fasting has several health benefits and several spiritual benefits. And the purpose of this book is that spiritual benefit or that power with God. And yes, there are financial releases. I had a number of financial breakthroughs through fasting and prayer. There have been times when I was fasting and I literally felt the shift in my life. You can just feel it, and I know that's the truth. He says in this book that a 21-day or 40-day prayer and fasting period will most assuredly hasten the Christian to such a great and deep experience of God that 21 days would be equal to 21 years. 40 days will be equal to 40 years. Experience shows that the 40-day period gives far greater result than a shorter time. As far as the power of God is concerned, and this would be very likely to be minimized because the power attained thereby is like atomic power and will bring one closer to God more quickly than any other way known. Another quote, he says, the truth of fasting is being revealed to us now to secure the greater things of God, such as the gifts of the Spirit, and a mighty worldwide revival of spiritual power that is definitely coming, as well as major signs and miracles in these last days. And you guys who follow my content, you know that I'm clear on this. I do believe we are in the last days. And so in these last days, as believers in the Most High God, among other disciplines, fasting should be a part of our spiritual disciplines. You say, okay, Iron, what are spiritual disciplines? Glad you asked me. Prayer is a spiritual discipline. Meditation is a spiritual discipline. Praise and worship is a spiritual discipline. Seed retention is a spiritual discipline. Right? I don't care if anybody says it's not just physical, it's a spiritual thing. Having control over your sexual urges is very spiritual. Having time when you renew your mind, when you sit down for half an hour to an hour and read and reflect, that is a spiritual discipline. And so fasting is one of those disciplines that this author likens to an atomic bomb or atomic power. So picture yourself being in a spiritual battle, right? And you're literally like dropping this spiritual bomb on an enemy camp. And that's something that I've always kind of known on a spiritual level. My take on it was, I always felt like when I fast, it really irritated demons. I knew that. I didn't liken it to an atomic bomb, but this concept does make sense. I knew that whenever I did this, this was somehow putting pressure on evil spirits that are coming against me. And I understand that we are in a spiritual war. It's no mistake to me. There are real demons, real evil spirits that want to stop me, you hear me, and that want to stop you. And so when you really believe that on a deeper level, fasting is something you will definitely consider and most certainly practice at some point. And I find it interesting that in my own life, we're all different. Okay, we all have a different spiritual journey. Fasting was something that I almost immediately knew I needed to do. I'm talking, not boasting, within 30 days of my conversion to the Bible and Christianity, I started fasting. So it's like right away I realized, you know what, if I'm doing this spiritual stuff, I should be doing this. And I felt the need. No one told me to, by the way. I just kind of knew in my spirit I need to do something deeper, you understand, to get to this next level, to break these curses in my life. And I began to see victory right away. Greek philosopher Plutarch, he said this, and this is a quote from the book. He said, instead of using medicine, fast for a day. Traces of this idea are to be found in ancient Chinese and Hindu writings. The Indians practiced it also. It was used for religious purposes as well as a method of restoring health. So again, fasting is, as I've already mentioned, it is a health as well as a spiritual discipline. And so when you do this, it will help you on a spiritual level as well as a physical level. Okay, so naturally with a book like this, he defines, on a base level, what is fasting. He says Webster's and also the Bible Dictionary defines fasting as the abstinence of food, especially as a religious observation, to abstain from food. First, we'll consider Webster's definition of food, and it reads as follows. Food is nourishment in solid form. If you will notice the definition of nourishment, you will again find it to be food. He suggests that we drink water while fasting. I suggest that. I don't recommend dry fast unless you really feel led by God to do that, and that should only be done very temporarily. We're talking 1 to 3 days max. But once again, I would not recommend that. For a new believer or new person that's fasting, I would recommend to drink water. Why? He says that the drinking of water does not prevent one from drawing closer to God, right? Water is pure, and it's a type of salvation of the Holy Spirit. Water, unlike corruptible food, evaporates into the atmosphere, while food goes back into the earth. Water is not stimulating, while food is. Food feeds the appetites of the carnality. Water does not. When an individual fasts, his pores become laden with toxins, especially his hands and face. Therefore, he should bathe externally as often as possible. And so that's been my experience too. So when you're fasting, nice hot shower, cold shower, skincare regimen. Why? Because your body's releasing those toxins. And so if you don't take care of your physical body, you will begin to break out in the face. It's really deep. And so you're getting rid of the toxins of your body, especially depending on your diet, what you're eating on a daily basis, whether you smoke cigarettes or drink alcohol or, use drugs or anything like that. You're going to have a release of those toxins when you fast. And so fasting is a science. Anyone can fast for a long period of times, but only the believer can expect supernatural results, okay? So anyone can go without eating food, but only a believer in the Most High God, Yeshua, can expect supernatural breakthrough. And that's really the purpose of this talk, is to fast for the purpose of experiencing a supernatural breakthrough. Some of you guys right now, again, based on my previous videos in spiritual warfare, you're trying to break curses. You want to break free from that poverty demon. You want to break free from that lust and that spirit of harlotry. You want to experience a new life, a new path and breakthrough. And fasting can be very helpful on that journey. He did get some insight from the American Indians who believed in the purpose of prayer and fasting. Now, in my own life, I've experienced through fasting, I'll give this 4 piece real quick. Visitations. I've had visitations from God. Not saying that God literally came to my room, but a visitation or divine visitation, and this is diving into some deeper, is when you encounter God's presence in an unusual way. God is omnipresent, which means he's everywhere at the same time. But a visitation is when he reveals his presence to you in a special way, and you feel that power in the room. The best way I can articulate that, I was just overwhelmed with this sense of great power and fear. And fear is a natural response when you are in the presence of a living God. Right? When God's presence is revealed to you on a deep level, there's this fear because for me personally, I instantly was reminded of my place as a human. This is the divine being, and I'm just a person on this earth. So no matter what our egos may be and who we may think we are as people, when you are in the presence of the Most High, you are humbled instantly. Okay? Instantly. Yes, I know it's a visitation. I felt this presence of power, but also comfort. So it's like it makes sense. If you are in the presence of God, you're going to have all types of emotions because there's discomfort there, because he's a God of comforts, right? There's this extreme power. And there's also this fear because you realize this divine being can bring some harm to me. God is no one to play with, right? And so there's a mixture of fear, respect, as well as comfort and hope. And that's when you know you're being visited by God, when you start to experience various emotions that all really point back to the revelation of who God has revealed himself to be to us. All powerful, loving, comfort, guidance, a judge. And so visitation has been something I've experienced during my times of fasting. Revelation. A lot of times guys ask me, okay, so how do you know this stuff, man? Where do you get this from? I'll tell you, man, when you're in God's presence and you pray every day and you fast from time to time and you read and reflect and live right, hold on to your seed, God will reveal things to you, man. He will give you fresh revelation for your family, for your business, decision making. So let's stop acting like God's not alive, my boy. God is alive, and he wants to speak to you and give you guidance in a real way day by day in life. Physical healing. I've experienced a better physical body from fasting. And so those are three. And the fourth are converts. I've seen people come into the faith and believe in Christianity, become Christ followers as I begin to pray and fast for them. Now, mentioning the American Indians, this is a quote from the book. He says this: many, if not all, of the American Indian tribes sought revelation of the Great Spirit through prayer and fasting. When Indian tribes had famines, food shortages, and lack of rain, the Great Spirit was sought in prayer and fasting, and their prayers were answered. So that's interesting. So when the Indians went through a drought season, famines, food shortage, lack, they understood that the Great Spirit, is what they refer to God, could help them through prayer and fasting. And so, guys, I want to kind of park right here. We don't know what type of times are coming our way in this world. Okay? We don't know what's going to happen next year. But I feel in my spirit there's going to be some type of shift in the next 6 months or so. We're talking, from January to June. We're going to see some new things. And with that, there may be a need for us to pray and fast for the Great Spirit, for God, the Most High Elohim, to give us provision during some dry times. And so I want to really put that right out there as well. We can take note from this lesson from the ancient American Indians. In certain tribes, nearly all Indian children who came to the age of puberty were required to set aside in prayer and fasting of 7 to 10 days to burn out, so to speak, the evil sex desires, so that they would have higher moral thoughts and a high spiritual life. As they grew and developed into manhood and womanhood, this practice was continued. I agree with this. Man, I think, especially here in America, oh my goodness, oh my gosh. American children should be required to pray and fast for a week, because those lust demons are latching on to children at a young age. Once they hit about 12, 13, 14, 15, I think, as a spiritual mentor, a spiritual general, that it should be required, just like these Native Americans. There was a reason for that. That was wisdom. What all of the internet access children have now, they're being exposed to sexual stuff that a 12 and 13-year-old, 10-year-old should not see. Bottom line. And so I think with the way our culture is now, this overly sexual culture we live in, I think it will be wise, especially if you have children, to introduce them to the practice of fasting, because the world's trying to introduce them to all type of sexual practices and make them sexually immoral before Almighty God. And so I think we're living in days now when people, and not just teenagers, early 20s, I would say, honestly, keep it all the way a stack, people from 13 to about 25 should consider fasting on some level to help them to deal with those strong sexual desires that they will inevitably have living in America. Many great men and women of the Bible did pray and fast. He says in this book on page 21, by the way, this is a very short book, 70 pages, so you can read this probably in a day or two. He says that the three men most highly developed spiritually are those who fasted 40 days. One was the Son of God. The other two were Moses and Elijah. Other folks of great importance of high spirituality that fasted during long periods when they were under great mental strain and tribulation are Anna the prophetess, David, Daniel, John the Baptist, and Paul. A close study of their lives showed that they gained great spiritual strength by fasting and prayer that otherwise they would not have received. So fasting and prayer are something that the prophets did. The apostles, Paul, prophets like John the Baptist, Daniel, kings like David, Jesus himself, right? Moses, the great man of God, who led the Hebrews out of Egypt, and the prophet Elijah, who was the one who was able to confront Jezebel. So let's park right there. If you want to confront Jezebel in your life, you need to fast. You cannot confront Jezebel in the natural. Jezebel has to be dealt with in the spirit realm, since it is called the Jezebel spirit. Many of you guys heard my teachings on Jezebel spirit and you missed that piece. You cannot confront Jezebel naturally. She has to be confronted in the spirit realm, as Elijah confronted the spiritual realm, through prayer and through fasting. Let me just give you that piece real quick. He then adds some more teeth to this message in this book by giving 100 reasons why we should fast. Now, I will not give you all 100 of these reasons. For one, I don't want to waste my time. But at the same time, I want you to read the book yourself. I'm not going to read it for you. I want you to read this book. But he says this, I will never fast unless the Lord puts a fast on me. These and other remarks are made by folks who have practically no understanding at all as to what fasting is all about. So if you're waiting for God to tell you it's time to fast, then you're not going to do it. It's something that you yourself as a human decide to do when you realize the need. So here are some of the spiritual reasons he mentions for fasting. He mentions about 50 spiritual reasons, and he mentions about 50 natural reasons. He mentions about 50 spiritual reasons to fast, and then he goes on to mention about 50 health benefits or natural reasons to fast. Both are very important. So let's be clear on that. There are various reasons to fast on a spiritual level, and there are various reasons to fast on a natural level. So let's begin with the spiritual. I'm going to read some of these, not all. Fasting reaches and obtains what prayer cannot alone. That's based on Matthew 17, 7 through 21. And I believe one of the verses in that text says, this kind comes only by prayer and fasting. And this kind refers to a certain kind of blessing, a certain type of demon removed from life, a certain breakthrough, a certain victory or gift from God will only come through a time of prayer and fasting. There's no way around this. Fasting brings one into direct contact with unbelief so that it can be removed. Unbelief can never be fully comprehended unless one fasts for 10 to 40 days. Now, again, I've done it once. I fasted for about 14 days once in my journey. Again, I don't recommend doing that right away, but that's something you should work towards at some point. You won't die. I tell you that if you are a healthy man, you will only increase your health. You might lose some weight, obviously, for a week of not eating, but you would become stronger spiritually. You have definitely better mental clarity. You will receive some divine dreams from God. You will receive a spiritual blessing. I would most certainly say there will be a financial breakthrough will come with that. I'm convinced of that. Not almost, let me rephrase that. I'm convinced of that. There will be some level of financial victory with that as well. Now, based on what type of work you do, that may not be practical. So you may consider a partial fast where you skip breakfast for 10 days. You know, there are different ways to do this. You may go on a no meat fast for 10 days. So consider that as well. It's an option. Fasting leaves the natural and takes one quickly into the spirit realm. And that has been my experience. Is your spirit gets stronger. When you fast, you're literally weakening the flesh for a period of time, and you are strengthening your spirit. So imagine feeding your spirit. What's going to happen? It's going to get stronger. You're going to get stronger spiritually. And a strong spirit always leads to a strong body. Fasting will crucify the flesh and break bad habits. So any of you got habits you want to break? We all do. We all have bad habits. And so any of those bad habits you want to break, fasting will most certainly help you in doing that. And so it will help you to put your flesh in subjection. Fasting places our natural appetites in a dormant condition. Thus, physical pleasures are not enjoyed. With pleasure appetites stagnant, God can come near us and we can come near him. He is contacted, and this one can begin to experience a true spiritual renewing in our bodies. Fasting will always give one the proper anointing for work. So if you're doing some type of work for God, if you're trying to start a business, you want to start a podcast, you want to figure out what you want to pursue in college, you're trying to find your purpose. Fasting does release the anointing of God, or the oil, which is a symbol of the power and presence of God's Spirit, into your life. Fasting always brings revelation and better understanding of the Bible. Sometimes visions and unspeakable glory will be manifested in this as well. Healing power of Christ, whether for his personal body or for the needs of others. Vital spiritual forces pour through individuals who have been in fasting often. Let me read that again. Vital spiritual forces pour through you. It's like the power of God will begin to just pour through you as you become a man or woman who undertakes the discipline of fasting and prayer. And fasting being a spiritual process, we learn how to believe that God will do what he tells us he will do. And we begin doubting the flesh, unbelief, and the devil rather than God's word any longer. Let me read that again. Fasting being a spiritual process, we learn how to believe that God will do what he tells us he will do, right? He will keep his word. We will begin doubting the flesh, unbelief, the devil, rather than the God and his word. Amen to that. And so those are several of the spiritual benefits of fasting. Let's now talk about the various health benefits to fasting. Fasting is the greatest curing agency known. When you feed a diseased body, you feed the disease. Fasting starves the disease. So I thought that was an interesting concept in terms of the physical. So, fasting can be used at times to starve the disease and help you to heal. Fasting rids the body of all the unwanted poisonous filth and food contamination. Fasting purifies the bloodstream. Fasting improves the circulation. It even cleanses the blood vessels so that the blood circulates all through vessels that may have therefore been closed, right? Hence blood clots. Fasting rests the heart. Improves, prevents, overcomes heart troubles. So I do feel like a calmness in my body when I fast. I didn't quite know that it was that, but yeah, that does make sense from my own experience. So yeah, it does calm the heart. It calms your nerves. You're calmer. You're not in this high-strung, stressful mindset that we're in, just living in this hustle culture we live in to survive with work and family and bills and pressure. So it kind of gives you a time to really rest. So look at fasting as a form of spiritual as well as natural rest. Fasting rapidly removes the cause of many diseases. Fasting will cure a lot of the functional elements we have in our bodies. And so you cannot underestimate that enough. Or shall I say, do not underestimate how powerful this discipline can be in helping you to be whole physically. Fasting is the greatest blood purifier known. The headache generally felt while fasting is a sure indication that we should fast. Wow, that's profound. The headache generally felt while fasting is a sure indication that we should fast. And so I notice that sometimes when I fast, I have a headache. And so that's a sign that you're removing some type of sickness or weakness from your body. So you're going to have a headache. I'm going to give you that warning, especially if you haven't done this before. You're going to feel weak and drowsy. And, that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's your body healing itself. You're giving your stomach a break. And in giving your stomach a break, this will definitely help you to live longer. Fasting is the greatest youth restorer known. Regular fasting prolongs life from 20 to 40 years, depending on how much or how long the fasts are. So, if you're fasting consistently, I don't know how many days it may be. Let's say once a week or sometimes twice a week. The early Christians, by the way, fasted twice a week. So regular fasting can prolong your life and help you live longer. I do believe that. This may be one reason why the ancients lived so long. The prophets and all those guys lived a long life because they didn't eat a lot and they spent a lot of time fasting. Think about it. They were outside a lot. They were walking. They were getting their sunlight. They were getting their fresh water. They were probably taking cold baths in rivers and lakes and ponds and whatnot, right? So they probably were taking cold showers, growing their hair out, growing their beard out, had their tendons there. You follow me? They were fasting. They were not eating. They were not overeating. They were not overweight probably. And that type of simplistic lifestyle helped them to live longer. Fasting causes one to become weak because the rubbish and poison within the body are being brought to a head like a boil. It is sorest when it is brought to a head before the core is removed. The weakness while fasting generally disappears after the worst poisons and pollutions are removed by the body from the house cleaning process. So look at fasting as like a physical house cleaning. If your body is like a home, right, or house, it's dirty, it's filthy from toxins, foods, different things we've had. Well, there's some of you who smoke or drink. And so you need this physical cleanse. Fasting will so purify the skin that often the complexion becomes rosy and like a child's. And so, yes, fasting will definitely help with your skincare regimen. I'm not saying you should not have that. You should have that. That does help. I try to wash my face twice a day and use certain, lotions and whatnot that can be helpful with your skincare regimen. And so even with all that, I think fasting can only accelerate that process. Fasting overcomes many bad habits. Fasting develops patience and aids temperance. Fasting overcomes and aids in the prevention of disease. Fasting draws the intestinal tract into its normal size, overcomes and prevents blood clots. Fasting restores a natural, normal appetite. After the fast is broken properly, The stomach being smaller requires less food. And that's a good thing. When you require less food, and this goes back to the practice of retention. And these things really go hand in hand. Retention, fasting, prayer, meditation, hard work, all these various disciplines that I've been teaching consistently, I might add, hard work, well deserved, that will help you to really restore yourself back to a place of health, a place where you can obtain wealth, a place where you can be the best version of yourself. And so this is just another one of those teachings in the arsenal of Iron and Soul. I hope this talk has encouraged you to read this book. Once again, the book is entitled The New Atomic Power with God Through Fasting and Prayer by Franklin Hall. This is your brother Iron and Soul. Thanks for listening to this video. God bless. Peace.